Okay, let's show another one of your images because we've got a lot more really nice ones to look at. The next one I'm going to bring up is this one. I'll just make it full screen so people can see it. I think it speaks a little bit more to, it's not, I don't see this one quite as artistic and poetic as the first one that I showed, but I think what it does well is really clearly shows, you know, the subject matter that you work on. I believe this is from a story that you were doing about corals, but also the people that you're photographing there are female scientists working in this
Mhm.
field. And I think that from what I've seen of your work following it over the years, that making sure that the work done by different types of scientists, especially female scientists, is a really important part of your work. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit more to why that's a theme that seems to run through your work and why that's important to you.
Yeah, a lot of my work focuses on elevating women's voices in science, and
Mm,
it's not that we don't have the same number of female scientists. I mean, I think the same number of people are getting PhDs. It's just they're really underrepresented in the media. And I did a fellowship with AAAS and the Lyda Hill Foundation a couple years ago, and it was interesting to learn some of the studies that they had done. Or just the data they had collected to understand, like how many female scientists are shown in shows or stories, or like the main point of it being is that representation matters. So if women
mm,
see other women scientists doing that work, they're more likely to see themselves in their shoes. And the same thing goes for not just gender, but race, ethnicity, like anything. If you see someone who looks like you doing that work, you feel like more empowered to maybe do that yourself and see yourself in their shoes. So I don't think I knew that there were going to be 7 women scientists on this boat when I got the assignment. This was literally like a week after I handed in my dissertation. And so talk about escaping from stress to go underwater. This was the perfect week for that.
sure.
Ironically, it was a week in, I think it was in July, and the air conditioning broke on the boat, and we're like 70 miles west of Key West and the Dry Tortugas on this. So it was really, really hot. Thankfully, we were spending a lot of time underwater. But just watching like the dedication of these women work underwater all day every day was really inspiring. And I don't know if part of the reason also why I focus on it is because coming being a woman in science myself, I don't know if a lot of times I've had this identity crisis of feeling like I quit science or like I'm not doing it anymore. And of course it's part of the work that I do, and it helps me understand stories and pitch stories that are maybe unique and connect with scientists in a certain way. But I think like uplifting other women's voices in science maybe makes me feel like I didn't completely abandon the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. Do you feel that plays into you being a photographer as well in terms of representation within the photography industry, not just the science field as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like I've never been like discriminated against really as a woman. I mean, I think working on ships is the most visible place where I've talked to a lot of other women about feeling like more did like I don't know, maybe not given as much power as you would be normally, just because like ships are a very male based place.
Mm,
Um, but I think in the field in general, I had the benefit of coming after people like Sylvia Earle and people who actually like you look at the newspaper articles about them and it's like female scientists like looking cute in bikini is going to do science, and I don't feel like
mm,
that's really the vibe anymore, which is great. But I mean, I think like there was sort of a generation before this that made it a lot easier for those of us. Not that like people don't still face challenges, but I think that like thankfully 20, 30 years ago there were a lot of women doing pioneering work that were facing a lot more discrimination than we are today. So, but I think that it helps to have stories about women doing the work that they're doing and giving more visibility, because they're also less likely to be, like called for an interview or to see themselves as an expert. So if you put out a call for, like scientists who study frogs, there's going to be more likely a male scientist who's going to say, yes, I'm an expert in that. And there might be a woman who studies like a different kind of frog who's like, oh no, I don't know a lot about that.
mm.
Even though they are an expert in the field. And so I think it's like allowing people to feel like more confident and get rid of that sort of um, the fear that you're not like good enough or smart enough, or imposter syndrome stuff that like I think a lot of us feel in the photography industry, but also in science as well.
It's interesting within the photography field. I follow a lot of people on social media, and I see, especially in the science and conservation kind of photography field, I see so many really inspiring female photographers, and I include you in this, with people like Christina Mittermeier, Amy
Mhm.
Vitale, who are all
Mhm.
doing really exciting work documenting environmental issues and conservation issues. And I just find it so encouraging. I have a young daughter who's 10 years old, and people like you are the ones who, I really proud to you say, oh, I know this photographer. I know Jenny. And to show her there are these, super cool, super intelligent, super smart, super photographers who are out there trying to make a difference in the world. And yeah, that's one of the reasons that I personally wanted to get you on the podcast to, to just to highlight that inspiring work that I see online.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think I had the benefit of coming, like maybe not 20 years after, but a little bit after, like people like Christina and Jill Heinerth and Amy Vitale,
Mhm.
um, and women in the photography industry that really were like kind of the first ones. I went down a rabbit hole that we can talk about a little bit later with Antarctica, and found out that there was a woman who photographed one of the first stories for Nat Geo about Antarctica, which was pretty cool back in the day when she was doing it. But I mean, still, if you follow a woman photograph, they track the lead images on like some main newspapers, and it's definitely like the ratio of women identifying photographers who are featured
Mhm.
versus males is like really not even close to 50% for places like New York Times, Washington Post, stuff like that. So there still is a lot of work
Sure.
to do
Of
do
course.
um, in the fields, but I think yeah, it helps to like tell stories about women like doing the inspiring work and get their faces out there, because some little girl could look at this picture and see herself and be planting corals.